platforms. Now, part of our conversations this morning is regarding education. And as you know, education is in the limelight right now. Now we're having the pressure of P7 results coming back. And then in a few weeks, our very students across the country are going to be returning to school with a lot of pressure, one of them being the hiked fees. But generally speaking, education is a human right, a public good, and a public responsibility. And without inclusive as well as equitable quality education and lifelong opportunities for all, countries like Uganda will not succeed in achieving gender equality and breaking the cycle of poverty that is leaving millions of children, youth as well as adults behind. Now today as we speak, 244 million children and youth are out of school. We do have 771 million adults that are illiterate as per UN, and their right to education is being violated, and we can say it's not acceptable. So is it time to transform the education sector? That's a big question mark. On this momentum, the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed on the 24th of January as International Day of Education in celebration of the role of education for peace and development, and it shall be the 5th International Day of Education that will be celebrated tomorrow. And the theme for tomorrow's celebrations are to invest in people, prioritize education, building on the global momentum generated by the UN Transforming Education Summit in September 2022. I am joined by Mr. Charles Echabo, who is the National Projects Coordinator at UNESCO. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Priscilla, and good morning, listener.
And then next to him, we are joined by Margot Hasfa, who's the Representative Youth Coalition for SDGs. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Priscilla.
You're most welcome. So let me start with Mr. Chabo. What's the significance of the International Day of Education, especially to Uganda?
Yeah, thank you very much, Priscilla, and once again, good morning, the viewer, listener. The International Day of Education, as it has been rightly communicated, was designated by the UN General Assembly that every 24th January, the countries in the world are called together to highlight the importance of education. So the call is to the member states to commit themselves to the policies and also to commit themselves to allocate resources in order to prioritize education as a public good. So in the case of Uganda, is a call for us to invest in education if we were to, invest in people and human resources. And this is relevant in the context of the National Development Plan of Uganda, where human resource capital is actually one of the key pillars. Human capital development is one of the key pillars. So calling onto attention of the country to prioritize education means that we have to give the right dose of resources for the education. We have to ensure that all children have fair access to quality and equitable education. And we also have to ensure that no one is left behind in terms of quality education, whether being the girl child, all those in rural areas. So it's a very, very big, significant call, but also to ensure that we respond to the level of education that is being transformed in the context of the crisis. I think COVID showed to us that there was a lot to learn, and many countries were not prepared, including Uganda. So this call is also awakening us to be prepared in order to respond to any form of crisis, either it is epidemics, or it is technological advancement, or it is any form of transformation. So we are therefore here inviting the whole of the country, everybody to take part of this celebration, the International Day of Education, but particularly calling on the member states, the government, and the civil servants, civil society organizations, the private sector to put their heads together, their hands together to be able to advance the cause of education in this country.
Speaking of advancing education, I know that the Youth Coalition for SDGs is also, mandated to do that and carry on the banner for education for all across the country, but also across the continent. So, Ms. Margot, in that respective, what is your perception of the current state of education in Uganda? And as SDGs, how are you building to ensure that it's an investment to all?
Thank you, Priscilla. Well, past COVID, I think we've seen a lot of inequalities that were originally there, but then now they've surfaced more because of the 2-year gap. So witnessing this at the moment, now we are looking more at ways we can actually come together in different sectors and then empower education, not just in certain societies or for certain genders, but then combining all the 4. And then under the SDGs, our priority is quality education. How do we make sure that every child has the right education access and then the right quality of education that they also need? And then as the future of education that is transforming, how are we going to bring in different measures and different techniques and different partners to make sure that we are also allowing transformation to take place in the different sectors of education? Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
All right. We want to find out, this is the 5th edition, and we want to find out the previous editions. Are there any changes, significant changes or recognizable changes that they have done to the education sector or the benefit of it thereof? Mr. Dry Chabo.
Yes, thank you, Priscilla. Yes, there's been significant changes. When you track in 2021, UNESCO commissioned a study, and the study is called The Futures of Education. And that study laid the grounds and be able to highlight some of the key challenges that are actually affecting education globally, including the level of illiteracy, issues of access to education, access of quality, issues of classroom. So as a result of designating this, there was a deliberate effort by UNESCO to do that study. And after that study of futures of education, last year, the UN General Assembly called all member states to what they call Transforming Education Summit, which happened in September last year, 2022. And in that summit, member states committed themselves to be able to, along the 5 tracks, to be able to bring out to attention, to action, a call to action to be able to respond to that. So yes, globally, we can say that there's an evidence that's been generated. There is a call and there is a commitment by member states, which culminated into the summit of September 2022. And now this year, the call is for the member states to fulfill the commitments that they expressed during the summit. Meaning now going forward, we are going to see an increased, involvement, engagement, resource allocation in the various countries, including Uganda. And I think that you've raised, it's very important for us to look at education as a public good. I think that's the point we're trying to say. Education is just not like, it's just not a service for say. It's a public good, it is a right, and it is it addresses so many other things. For instance, one, education is a one way to empowerment across the board. When children are empowered, when they have the right education, they will be able to connect. First of all, they will know how to read and write, and therefore globally they can connect. That's huge investment. And 2 is a right to the children, because the children have a right to know what is happening within themselves. And education is not only the skills transfer, it's not only learning how to read and write or do mathematics. It gives them the cognitive development, interaction socially with the people. Education also, as we all know, will promote development, because once you have the right set skills of people, that means you have got a productive labor force. When you have a productive labor force, eventually it's leading to development of the country. And therefore, that means that because it leads to the development of the country, it will also cause a lot of other things, addressing some social challenges that might have happened because people are ignorant or do not have information to make decisions. Okay. So when we look at education, we look at it as a public good, we look at it as a right, we look at it as an investment, causing development and a driver to development in any country.
Ms. Margot, we have seen significant leniencies that have been put out towards the girl child. Yes. You do have extra points being added to them, entry university. Within the education system itself, there's been more things that have been put to attract the girl child into education, because it's key and it's their right. And those milestones have been significant and recognizable right now. On national level, we do have women that are in top leadership here in our country. So can we talk about the benefits of this emphasis on the girl child education and how in turn it has changed the state of the country in empowerment and development?
Thank you. I think I'll begin that with a very famous quote that when you empower a girl, you empower a nation. When you empower a woman, you empower a nation. So based on that, for me, if girls are given more opportunities in high-level decision-making, in education-wise and all, you're going to have communities that are going to grow and develop faster. Because most of these girls, once they've gotten the right level of education, they always go back to the communities they come from. So there you're helping in the way in the future, you're breaking the poverty cycle, because they're going to go back and invest in their communities. Two, when you put women and girls in places of decision making and empowered and educated, you're giving them a platform where then they can advocate for the rights of others and represent them as well. So for me, I feel like this new decision and the new policies that are allowing the girl child to be more empowered is going to have, one, huge economic returns, because educated and empowered women, they build strong enterprises and businesses. So that has economic returns for the nation. Two, it's going to break the cycles of poverty in most of these communities, because these women are always going to go back to empower the communities. And then three, it's going to build the platform for the girl child and the woman to dream again and know that it's all possible to achieve anything that you want in life.
Mr. Draichabo, why does this leave the boy child? Because if women are getting more empowered, then it feels like the men are being left behind. And yet in the theme for tomorrow's celebrations, it says to invest in people, not just girls, but to invest in both boys and girls, the youth of this nation. You must prioritize education. So how do we bring priority back to also pay attention to the boy child?
Yeah, thank you, Priscilla, for raising that very crucial point. I think putting in the context, when we are talking about education, we are talking about here quality education for all. So quality education for all means the boy child should not be left behind. I think the focus, the highlight on the girl child is because historically girls have been left behind for a very long time. So it's a catch-up program. It's trying to ensure that the girls are empowered to have a fair access to education, that they are not kept at home because you know, they have to do the course, or people prioritize boys because they know the girl will get married and then the bride price pays, so they look at the girl as you know, a source of income. So that is the background to which an affirmative action was derived to be able to support the girl child. Nevertheless, the boy child shall not be left behind, because at the end of it all, the girl child also needs the boy child for his or her social support mechanism. The issues of life skills and sexuality education, for example, is key and in this context, because at the end of it all, when the boy child is not empowered, it is the same boy child who is going to make advances to the girl and therefore terminate the girl's continuity of education by making the girl pregnant. So we need to empower the boy child equally so that he can understand that the girl child is actually a sister and it needs to be supported. We do not want to bring out girls who will like actually good husbands to marry in the future, because these good girls also need good husbands, isn't it? They need friends, they need brothers, they need peers who to support. So whereas we are addressing the issues of the girl child, we are also cognizant of the fact that the boy child should equally be empowered, but empowered in the such that he supports and complements the effort to support the girl child, but not you know, abusing the girl child, taking advantage of the girl child, but instead empowers the girl child. So that's the approach. So both should be empowered to reinforce each other.
Okay, Ms. Margot, from the perspective of SDGs Youth Coalition, in your perspective, is government's intervention enough to boost education right now?
Yeah, I think we all start from somewhere, and right now from the new curriculum, from the new trainings that are happening with the teachers and all, I think it's a good start. Does it need more empowerment? Yes, of course, but if we work all together and support the government, it's not a one-sided thing that we must leave it to the government. So it's how we come together and support, but at least the ministry and the government, they've come together and they've shown that, you know, this is something they're willing to take serious, and they're putting certain measures in place. So yes, it's a good start for now.
Okay, all right, let's look at the papers this morning. The Daily Monitor has a big black and white schools milk policy hangs in the balance. Of course, there's queries in there, and still in the Daily Monitor, there's a story about the hiked fees. So Mr. Draichapo, with the situation right now, it feels like there's going to be creation of inequality. Access to education. If we continue in this direction, how do we revert this?
Well, thank you very much, Priscilla, again. And let me pick from the point that Margot spoke about in terms of what the government is doing, whether the government is doing enough in order to address issues of education inequalities. On one hand, we have registered very good progress, we must say, in terms of universal primary education, especially when it comes to enrollment. The rate of enrollment and gender parity in enrollment is actually at 50-50, in order to say that there is an equal number of girls to boys who enroll for universal primary education. And we're celebrating 25 years of actually this program in the country. So to that far, we can really commend the government to take that initiative to ensure that all the children have possibility and have the right to access the education. And we know the government is also putting in place the efforts to be able to address the issue of secondary education, especially for the girl child as well. So yes, to a very great extent, that has been done. But the challenges that need to be addressed is to address the issue of equality, to access to equality, education, so that all the children are not denied. None of the children is denied access because of his or her position in the society, either is able or unable to afford. So in light of that, the issue of the school fees hiking is an issue of worry, not only to the parents, and you can see is also a worry to the government as well. I know for sure that the government is in a very high level discussion to try to regulate this kind of school fees that is charged. And this is a response, this is a positive response. And working with the teachers union, with the other parents, it is an effort that the government is going to put in place to ensure that there is a cap in terms of, you know, and we really appeal to the government to do that. If we were to have a fair access to education, we appeal to the government to put a fair cap so that learning institutions charge fair fees for those. There are different levels. There's the private sector education, there's the public sector education, there are civil society run institutions, but all the same, at the end of it all, we should ensure that no one is left behind because cannot be able to afford. So it's a very genuine concern, but I'm sure the government people is on top of this to address it, to ensure that everybody has access to education.
All right, getting down to the matter of the International Day of Education, which is being recognized tomorrow. Ms. Margot, what is the plan? Are there celebrations, and how do you intend to celebrate it while creating awareness of the importance of education as a right?
Okay, thank you, Priscilla. This year we are celebrating by convening with different development partners, UN agencies, Ministry of Education, learners, students, corporate companies, developmental agencies, and we're going to convene at Makerere University for a half-day session where we're going to engage in panel discussions around the future of education and how do we come together to make it better. But then we're also going to have students air out and showcase innovations that have survived post-COVID, and also innovations that were of impact during the COVID era. And the main thing around is also to get different people and different partners in education come together and share ways that we can affect policies, we can work together, and also debate on the inequalities that are in education and how do we work together to eliminate those. So we are expecting different partners, representatives from the Ministry of Education, UN agencies, learners, corporate companies, a lot of developmental partners as well. And then hopefully at the end of it, we'll have to come to a discussion and see how we can effect policies, and then also showcase these different innovations, because if you look around, there's so many innovations around education. So we want to give them a platform to showcase this, and then also find ways of working together. Yes.
All right, is it invitation only? Is it open to the public?
It's very open to the public, okay. Yes,
and
very
where is
much.
It going to be?
It's going to be at Makerere University, Yusuf Lule Auditorium. We begin from 8 to 2:30 p.m.
Okay, all right. Finally, Mr. Draichabo, while we do have the convention tomorrow, we believe that there should be a roadmap to continue this conversation throughout the rest of the year. And so what is on the roadmap for the rest of the year in prioritizing education?
Yeah, thank you very much. You've rightly observed, Priscilla, that this is just a climax, it's a celebration, but it is a time for us also to review our scorecard. You know, when you review the scorecard, it gives you a bearing, it gives you the direction that you are going to take. So we hope that coming out of this celebration tomorrow, we are going to come up with a very clear action points. And the action points will give us pointers in terms of which directions to go. For one, I know for sure that the issues of teacher, for example, the quality teacher is going to be addressed. The issue of quality and accessible education to all is going to be addressed. The issue of enrollment is going to be addressed. The issue of gender in education is going to be addressed. And we're very cautious, by the way, and I should have said this at the beginning, that my friend here, Margot, is representing the SDGs for Youth Coalition. And this is deliberate effort because we would like to see the young people in front of this agenda. So they will be able to drive the agenda. So it's not the UN that is doing this for them. It's not the government that's going to do it for them, because we believe and know that the issue of education is to a very great extent at the hand of the young people. And it is the Youth Coalition for SDG, because this is also midway between the SDGs. You know, SDGs by 2030, we are going to be held accountable as a country. So we need to start tracking. So the tracking is starting now, and that's already started. We do tomorrow, so we'll be tracing various indicators. We know the SDGs have 17, indicators to achieve. So we are going to track how far have we gone as a country in terms of education. So this is a process of starting to track, to monitor, and report globally in terms of how the country is faring.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Charles Draichabo, and also Ms. Margot, for that enlightenment on education. And of course, as the theme states it, if you are to invest in people, then prioritize education, because one, education is a public good. It's also your right, but it's also one of the best ways to empower and develop not just a community, but a country.